Hi, I'm Demetrius Malbro, host of Veritas Live. And today we will discuss some of the challenges and strategies for moving applications to the cloud and also keeping them resilient against increasing cyber attacks and disasters. So tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And we love to see all of the diverse locations. And also be sure to submit your questions in the chat box using hashtag Veritas Live. Now, let's introduce our guest speakers. So we have Miles Scott, Senior Partner Solutions Architect from AWS. Miles, say hello.
Hey, Demetrius. Glad to be here this morning.
And we also have our very own Doug Snyder, Senior Product Manager here at Veritas. Doug.
Thank you, Demetrius, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
All right, let's continue on. And we always, in Veritas Live fashion, open with an icebreaker. So why don't you tell us about one of your hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not working? And Miles, let's hear from you first.
Yeah, so my wife and I have a reoccurring joke that my biggest hobby is collecting hobbies. So I'm a person that loves to learn, and I kind of jump around. So I think most recently, I actually last Friday I got certified with the FAA to fly unmanned aircraft systems. So that's probably my newest and most exciting hobby at current time.
Wow, that makes you a very smart guy then. So great hobby to have there. Doug, what about you?
I don't really collect hobbies. I collect tools for hobbies. So I picked up bull turning on the lathe about 12 years ago, and I've really enjoyed it because I get to buy fancy new wood turning tools about every 4 or 5 months. So it's a good way to relax, and it's a very quiet woodworking hobby. So it doesn't require a lot of noise, and so you can have your hobby without chasing everybody out of the house, which is what I really like about it.
Well, awesome. Sounds like fun to me.
It is fun. You should try it.
So moving on. So people think that moving to the cloud, that it's so easy, but you need to be smart about which applications you move and also how you will protect that data in the cloud. So let's get into it now with our first question. So what are some of the key strategies that enterprise companies need to adopt when preparing and transitioning applications to the cloud? And Doug, why don't you take that one for us first?
Well, sure. The nature of a business critical application is different from other applications. Most business critical applications are going to be in service for probably anywhere from 8, 9, or more years, up to 15. So it's a very long-term commitment. And by its nature, the tolerance for downtime is pretty limited. So when customers move to the cloud, they look at refactoring or replatforming, and both have some advantages. If you replatform, you need to make sure that you build in the level of resiliency that you need, that you've always become accustomed to. And that's something that tends to get overlooked as customers move to the cloud. Now, of course, if you're going to refactor and rewrite the application, it's a little different because you may be pulling in some cloud native services, which are, by their nature, highly available. But you may still need to, have some sort of disaster recovery and business continuity planning done. Also, customers need to know what's important to move to the cloud. If you pick up an entire virtual machine, you're picking up, the swap space, the download folder, the temp directory. All those things aren't relevant to your business. The data that makes that application run is what's relevant to your business. And that's really what you should focus on, is moving the data and not the things that aren't important to the operations.
Well, awesome.
Yeah, Doug, Oh yeah, yeah. So Doug, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. This is obviously a question that we get asked a lot at Amazon, and we kind of have an approach where we always tell people that the first thing you want to do is kind of assess your environment, right? Look at what you have, look at what you want to move, and then kind of break out each one of those things and kind of plan for each one individually. And then once you've kind of had a thorough assessment done, pick one or a few things, start to get them moving, start to mobilize your teams, and then actually start that migration. So the refactoring, the rehosting, those 7 R's of migration. That's really, those are really good things to use to categorize each one of your applications and figure out what that best path is to bring it into the cloud.
In woodworking, we say measure twice, cut once. In cloud migration, it should be plan twice, move once.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So.
Wow, 7 steps of migration. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah, the 7 R's of migration, they call it.
7 R's of migration. Okay, awesome. Another question for you both. What are some of the challenges that companies face when they move their applications to AWS specifically? Miles, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times we actually see that some of the bigger challenges, which will be kind of surprising on this call, but the people and culture can many times be actually harder than the technology. So starting with a good top-down approach is something we've seen be very successful to kind of help with that challenge. Really getting senior leadership buy-in, having them drive the discussions and lead things from the top down is helpful. One of the other big challenges that I've seen kind of consistently since I've been here, and also on the other side as a customer, is having your staff trained. AWS spends a lot of time and money every year making sure that our staff are trained and making sure that our customers get and have access to great training for platform services. So. And then lastly, one of the other challenges that I've kind of seen firsthand is really kind of analysis paralysis, right? So the customers have large environments, they have lots of applications, and many of those are critical applications. They don't know where to start, and again, that really gets back to picking something that works, moving it, learning from it, and then kind of repeating that process in a structured manner.
Yeah, I would agree. The training that's required to operate successfully in AWS tends to get overlooked, and also the competencies that are required to manage an application tend to get overlooked. Again, there's a perception that oh, well, that's cloud, it's simple, we can pick it up. There's a very, very large number of services to manage, not just in sometimes the number of instances that you might have available, but also the different storage components, how they work together. The networking is very different than what you're used to on-premise. So if you throw something else on top of that to make it more difficult to manage the availability and uptime or disaster recovery, it gets to be much, much more problematic because you're learning a new system, and now you maybe are learning something new in terms of a recovery runbook. And we've seen a lot of customers pull back and say, yeah, that's where we ran into some issues. It was just a little too much for the existing team to take on. And if they take the bimodal approach and say, we're only going to have 2 teams that only play in their respective sandboxes, well, you're actually making the problem worse sometimes because now they don't have the ability to go back to the other team and say, hey, how do we solve this problem? Or how do we coordinate together to move this application?
Okay, well, fantastic. Great information, gentlemen. And also, please do not be shy in the audience. Please submit your questions. Use hashtag Veritas Live. We are here. You have AWS and Veritas. We're willing to answer your questions and to also give you some information that will help you keep your environment up and resilient. And speaking of resilience, the next question is, how can companies keep their applications resilient when in the cloud? And Doug, why don't you lead us on that one?
Sure. Cloud infrastructure is, by its nature, extremely resilient. AWS does a tremendous job of managing, particularly at scale, all the services and all the systems that they run. And the proof point of that is that region failures are really infrequent, and availability zone failures are fairly infrequent. Individual components inside an availability zone, just due to the law of large numbers, I mean, they do fail. Customers do get impacted. And I think one of the challenges that customers face when they design for resiliency is to assume that systems will always be up. In your on-premise environment, we always talked about building in redundancy. You have to make sure that you've got something to stand by in case something goes wrong. Component failures are really, though, only 30% of the reasons that customers experience downtime. The rest are things like just denial of service attacks, malicious insiders, external threats, networking changes, things like that are actually cause a much broader swath of downtime events. And customers tend to forget that happens in the cloud as well. So when they move to the cloud, you still want to sit down and think, how would I design this if I was looking at this from a very neutral perspective? I would design in resiliency. I would make sure I have some automation and failover. I would make sure that I've got my resources monitored. And if you do that, then you're going to be successful.
Miles, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Doug, I think the thing that you said that really caught my attention was at scale, things fail all the time. There's a very famous quote from our CTO that says everything fails all the time, right? And that couldn't be said better. And I think it's important that as our customers go through and start to explore their journey with the cloud, they have a good understanding of the AWS shared responsibility model for resiliency and security. Both of those are critical.
Mm-hmm.
The resiliency one is a relatively new responsibility model that we've put out, and I definitely highly encourage customers to look at that, to have a good understanding of what Amazon takes care of and where customer responsibilities lie in developing their own applications in the cloud. And that's really where we see great partners like Veritas come in and help offload some of that burden for customers like we do on the infrastructure side.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the partnership is that there's perceptions sometimes at AWS and Veritas or at loggerheads or that we're working different purposes and we're not. We're working to solve the customer issue, right?
Absolutely.
And there are things that we do very well, and there are things that Amazon does very well. And when you put the best of those breeds together, then the customer has a platform that they can run their services on completely with confidence, know that they're going to have the same or better experience than they would on premise. They're going to realize the cost savings and the scales and the economies of cloud, but not sacrifice anything else. And that's really the end state that we want for our customers.
Yeah, and you both mentioned the partnership, and so obviously let's talk a little bit about the Better Together story and how does Veritas and AWS work together to create, let's say, a more robust and resilient environment for applications, specifically in Amazon Web Services? Miles, you want to maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, I can take the lead on that one. So, so I'll start with a little bit of background about myself because I think it leads into the story. So, prior to coming to Amazon, I've been a customer of Amazon and Veritas for the last 13 years, and so it's been really awesome to see kind of both sides of that journey on the partnership. Amazon has a large partner environment. We have over 150,000 active partners that we work with, and Veritas is definitely one of the ones that I'm privileged to work with. Being able to see the transformation that you guys are going through with your cloud services and with your Alta brand, it's just absolutely great to see the innovation that you guys are working on. And it's really exciting for me to be engaged and involved in that from the Amazon side, helping you guys out, being able to provide feedback and helping you guys with designs with Amazon services. So it's just been a great experience in my mind. I've definitely seen a ton of innovation going on, joint innovation too, where Amazon and AWS are working together to bring solutions to market. And I'm really glad to see that Veritas and Amazon are both committed to that partnership.
Yeah, and I would echo that. Outside of the technical things that we do to validate, what we put in front of a customer, Amazon has been a very, very willing partner to help us make our products better. When we develop something, when we develop a feature, it's generally with the intent that it can be deployed pretty much anywhere, right? But when look at the cloud, there are sometimes certain hooks, certain API calls, certain things that we need to do to make sure that it runs best in that environment. And consistently, Amazon is at the forefront of saying, we will help you with this. We're not going to put the onus completely on Veritas to figure this out. We know it's important to our customers. We know that there's a lot of value for our customers by leveraging this technology. And they see a lot of benefits to themselves, to their customers by helping Veritas, turn those things around quicker, get more features out, and make that integration even tighter. Miles dropped a little hint about some of the things that we're doing that will be delivered, as a service here, which will be kind of a first cloud native type approach for Veritas. That's a very exciting offering, and we couldn't have done it by ourselves. We also have some updates coming to our core products that, again, were developed with a kind of a cloud first, Amazon first mentality, because it's either requests coming from people like Miles and some of the partners and customers that he works with to let us know that, hey, maybe there's some things that we missed or some things that, in our roadmap we could design to be a little bit better. And we know Amazon will help us get there.
And we do see your question in the chat around the shared responsibility model for AWS. I think someone is dropping the link in the chat box right now. And just to be cognizant of the time here, Miles, I want to invite you to just give us some last remarks, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you guys for inviting me. It's always a great time to sit down with Doug and kind of talk about things related to resiliency. The one pitch I kind of have is there's a lot of upcoming free events from AWS that are coming out. We have AWS summits in the Americas, in Europe, all over the globe. So I would love to see you guys out there. I personally plan on attending at least 2 of them. So I would love to interact with anyone that's there, and I think Veritas will be there at some. I think you guys are sponsoring, so it'll be great to kind of be able to connect with with our shared customers.
Yeah, that's another example of the partnership that we have. We sponsor AWS events, and AWS makes sure that we have a very visible presence at reInvent and other conferences. It really is an arm-in-arm relationship. So yeah, take advantage of the upcoming event schedule. It's very interesting. You're going to see that not only do we have a great story today, there's a lot of exciting things that are coming out in the next 6, 9, 12 months, which I think are going to be very successful in the market, but also solve customer problems.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. And I know there are a couple of relevant blog posts as well that will be floating around on social media. So be sure to go check out the Veritas social media handles on Twitter and also on LinkedIn as well. And just to continue to build a little bit on the AWS summits that Miles mentioned, Veritas is an elite sponsor of AWS regional summits throughout the Americas this summer. And these events are free. And it's also a chance for you to network with AWS and Veritas in the Veritas Partner and Solutions Expo. And so for more information on where to find a summit near you, check out the link below. And finally, we also have Veritas will be at HIMSS in Chicago next month between April the 18th through the 20th. And the HIMSS conference is centered around the global healthcare ecosystem, and we will definitely be there. We're looking forward to seeing you. You can find us at booth 7906, where you can check out some of our live presentations or our healthcare solution demos. So join us for the next episode of Veritas Live on April the 11th. Okay, mark your calendars, April the 11th, right here on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us today. And until then, stay secure and back up often.